the last species that angered humanity, now erased from galactic history. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open, with a sound that echoed through the cavernous hall. Ambassador Marcus Vega took a deep breath as he stood at the entrance, his shoulders squared beneath his formal diplomatic uniform. The hall before him was unlike anything any human had ever witnessed, a vast dome with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal, pulsing with soft blue light. Thousands of seats arranged in concentric circles rose up from the central floor, and each seat was occupied by a different alien species. Some had multiple limbs, others had none. Some floated in containment fields, while others towered 3 times the height of a human. The silence that fell was immediate and complete. 5,000 eyes, some compound, some singular, some merely sensory, organs that humans had no name for, turned to watch the lone human walk forward. The representative of Earth approaches the council, announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Humanity stands before the Galactic Assembly for judgment. Marcus had been chosen for this mission because of his unshakable calm. Yet even he felt a flutter of anxiety as he approached the central platform. He had trained for this moment for years, studying thousands of alien customs and protocols, learning how to read non-human expressions and body language. But nothing could fully prepare him for the reality of being the first and only human to stand before the governing body of over 300 intelligent species. Ambassador Vega of Earth spoke, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted colors as it spoke. This was High Counselor Trazes, the nominal leader of the Galactic Council. You stand accused of unauthorized weapons deployment, territorial aggression, and violation of 17 Council directives. How do you respond? Marcus stepped onto the speaker's platform, feeling it adjust beneath his feet to his height and weight. A translation field hummed to life around him, ensuring every being in the chamber would understand his words. High Counselor, esteemed representatives, Marcus began, his voice steady. With all due respect, Earth cannot violate directives it was never informed of. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Marcus continued before they could interrupt. Humanity achieved faster than light travel just 3 standard cycles ago. We had no contact with any Council species until the Varaxian fleet entered our system without warning or communication 57 days ago. He paused, letting his words sink in. A fleet that immediately began harvesting operations on our outer colonies. The Varaxian Empire has harvesting rights in that sector, countered a bulbous being from the 3rd tier, its voice gurgling through translation. Those rights were granted 800 cycles ago. Marcus tapped his wrist device and a holographic display sprang to life above the central platform. It showed Earth's solar system, then zoomed out to display surrounding space. Our records indicate no formal contact or treaty with any Varaxian representatives, Marcus replied. Furthermore, Council Protocol Section 7329B clearly states that emerging species with newly developed FTL capabilities must be approached through proper diplomatic channels before any resource extraction takes place in their home systems. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus had spent months studying their legal codes, finding the loopholes and contradictions that might save humanity from becoming just another subjugated race. The Varaxian fleet attacked 3 of our settlements, Marcus continued, his tone hardening slightly. They took resources and captives. When our defense forces responded, they were acting within the bounds of self-preservation, a right recognized by Article 12 of the Galactic Charter. High Counselor Trazes' skin shifted to a deep purple. The response was disproportionate. The Varaxian battlecruiser Eternal Dominion was completely destroyed. Along with 3,000 of our citizens who were being held aboard, Marcus replied quietly. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. That was not in the Varaxian report, admitted a counselor from the upper tier. I imagine there were many things left out of their report, Marcus said. He tapped his device again and the display changed to show sensor readings. Our ships recorded everything. We tracked the captives' biosignatures from the surface to the Varaxian vessels. We attempted communication 67 times before the Varaxians opened fire. Only then did we deploy defensive measures. What manner of defensive measures could destroy a Class 7 battlecruiser? Demanded a counselor. This one, a reptilian being with scaled ridges along its skull. Your species is classified as having only Class 3 technology. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. We've found that accurate classification requires accurate information exchange. He tapped his device one final time, and the holographic display changed to show the aftermath of the battle. The Varaxian ship was not simply damaged or destroyed. It had been completely disintegrated, leaving behind only a cloud of elemental particles. What weapon did this? High Counselor Trazis asked, their voice barely above a whisper. We call it a quantum eraser, Marcus replied. It doesn't just destroy matter. It eliminates the information pattern that defines the object's existence. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. Several species had particular cultural or religious views about the sanctity of information patterns. Such technology is forbidden by council law, shouted a counselor. Again, laws we were never informed of, Marcus countered smoothly. But I'm not here to argue technicalities. I'm here to establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Galactic Council, and to address a far more serious concern. More serious than illegal weapons technology? Tracy's asked, their skin now shifting between colors rapidly. Yes, Marcus said firmly. The complete disappearance of the Varaxian Empire from all records, databases, and memory banks across known space. The chamber erupted in chaos. Counselors shouted over each other, some rising from their seats in agitation. Trizes raised all four of their arms, calling for order. What nonsense is this? Demanded the reptilian counselor. The Varaxian Empire controls 17 systems and has been a council member for 12,000 cycles. Marcus shook his head. I'm afraid you're mistaken, counselor. There is no record of any civilization called the Varaxian Empire in any database across the galaxy. Not in the council archives, not in trade records, not even in astronomical surveys of the systems they supposedly controlled. Impossible, Trazis exclaimed. I personally negotiated with Supreme Overlord Krez just last cycle. Did you? Marcus asked quietly. Check your personal logs, counselor. I think you'll find that meeting never happened. A hush fell over the chamber as counselors frantically accessed their devices, searching records, communicating with their home worlds. The confusion and fear were palpable. What? What have you done? Trazis asked, their voice trembling. We didn't just develop weapons that could destroy ships, Marcus explained, his tone matter of fact. We developed systems that could erase information across quantum-entangled networks. When the Varaxians took our people and refused to return them, when they fired on our rescue ships, humanity made a decision. He looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of as many counselors as he could. We decided that any species that would commit such acts against us didn't deserve to exist, not physically, but historically. The Varaxians themselves still live, but every record of their civilization, every memory, every piece of data, gone. This is impossible, whispered a counselor, but their voice lacked conviction. Is it? Marcus asked. Then tell me, what's the name of the empire that controlled the Sirius sector for the past 12,000 cycles? What species evolved on Proxima Centauri III? Who invented the quantum fold drive? You all know these answers should be the Varaxian Empire, but you can't recall it anymore, can you? The fear in the chamber was now a living thing, crawling from one representative to another. Ambassador Vega, Trazis said finally, their voice steady through obvious effort. What does Earth want from this council? Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Recognition, protection, and a very simple understanding that humanity wishes to join the galactic community in peace, but we will not be exploited, harvested, or subjugated. The fate of the Varaxians is a demonstration, not a threat, but it is one that I trust makes our position absolutely clear. He stepped down from the platform, the echo of his footsteps the only sound in the vast, silent chamber. We look forward to establishing formal diplomatic relations, he said as he turned to leave. And should any counselor wish to learn more about Earth, our delegation will be available in the diplomatic quarter. Good day. As Marcus walked out of the chamber, the massive doors closing behind him with a thunderous boom, 300 species collectively realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had just fundamentally changed. The last species that angered humanity, now erased from galactic history, Admiral Ren Takeda, stood at the command center of Earth's defense station vigilant, watching the massive holographic display that showed the movements of ships throughout the solar system. The station hung in orbit above Earth like a protective sentinel, its sleek design concealing weapon systems that few in the galaxy could match. Behind him, a dozen officers monitored different systems, their faces illuminated by the glow of their screens. "Status report on the Galactic Council delegation?" Wren asked, his voice calm despite the tension that had gripped Earth's military for weeks. "Their vessel entered orbit 10 minutes ago, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Olivia Dixon. "They're following the designated approach vector. Scans show 17 life forms aboard, matching the diplomatic manifest." Wren nodded, his eyes never leaving the display where a blinking green dot represented the Council ship. This visit was unprecedented, a full delegation from the Galactic Council coming to Earth itself rather than meeting at neutral ground. It had been 3 months since Ambassador Vega's appearance before the Council, 3 months of careful negotiation and subtle posturing. "And our security measures?" he asked. "All systems operational," replied Commander Jackson from the Defense Console. "Quantum shields at full capacity. Information firewalls active on all networks." The Admiral allowed himself a tight smile. After the Varaxian incident, Earth had taken no chances with its security. The quantum shields were only part of their defense. The real protection lay in the information networks, now guarded by protocols that could detect and repel any attempt at data intrusion. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dixon called suddenly, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council ship. They're requesting direct communication with you specifically." Wren raised an eyebrow. This wasn't in the diplomatic schedule. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and the image of a being appeared. It was vaguely humanoid but with silver-blue skin that seemed to ripple like water. This was High Counselor Trazis, the most powerful political figure in the Galactic Council. "Admiral Takeda," Trazis greeted, their voice translated into perfect English. "I apologize for the unscheduled communication, but a matter of grave importance has arisen." "I'm listening, Counselor," Wren replied, keeping his expression neutral. "Our sensors have detected unusual quantum fluctuations originating from the Arcturus system," Tracy said, their skin rippling more rapidly, a sign of agitation according to the briefings. "These fluctuations match the pattern observed during the incident with the species whose name we no longer recall." Wren felt a chill run down his spine, but his face betrayed nothing. "The Arcturus system is outside Earth's territory, Counselor. We have no operations there." "Perhaps not officially," Trazis replied, their eyes, iridescent orbs with no visible pupils, fixed on Wren. "But our intelligence suggests that a human research vessel entered that system approximately 14 standard days ago. Shortly afterward, all communication with the mining colony on Arcturus IV ceased." Wren knew exactly what Trazis was referring to. The Malkoth conglomerate had established an unauthorized mining operation on Arcturus IV, a planet rich in rare isotopes. They had been warned once about harvesting too close to human space. They had not heeded that warning. "That's concerning news, Counselor," Wren said carefully. "But I fail to see how it relates to Earth." "Admiral," Trazis said, leaning closer to the screen. 3 hours ago, our archivist discovered that all records relating to the Malkoth conglomerate are being systematically erased from our databases. Not destroyed, erased as if they never existed." The command center fell silent. Every officer present knew what this meant. "That is troubling," Wren admitted. "However, Earth's policy on information security is clear. We do not comment on specific defensive measures." "This is not a defensive measure," Tracy's exclaimed, their skin now flashing with patterns of distress. "This is the second extinction-level information event in less than a standard cycle." "The Council cannot ignore it, Counselor," Wren interrupted smoothly. "Let me be very clear. Earth does not seek conflict with the Galactic Council or any of its member species. We wish only to ensure the safety and sovereignty of humanity as we take our place in the galactic community." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we will not tolerate threats to our people or our interests. Any species that chooses to target humans will find that we respond decisively." Trazis was silent for a long moment, their skin gradually settling into a more uniform pattern. "The delegation will proceed as planned," they said finally. "But the Council requires assurances, Admiral. We cannot allow the fabric of galactic history to be rewritten at will." "Of course," Wren replied with a thin smile. "I'm sure our diplomats can work something out." "Safe journey, Counselor." The transmission ended, and Wren turned to his officers. all of whom were watching him with expressions ranging from concern to pride. "Send a priority message to Director Hayashi at Information Defense," he ordered. "Tell her to accelerate the Arcturus operation. I want it completed before the Council delegation lands." "Yes, sir," replied Lieutenant Dixon, already typing the command. Commander Jackson approached, lowering his voice. "Admiral, if I may speak freely." Wren nodded. "The Council is scared," Jackson said. "I've studied their cultural indicators for years, and I've never seen patterns like those on the Councilor's skin. They're terrified of what we can do." "Good," Wren replied simply. "Fear is a powerful motivator for peaceful cooperation." 6 hours later, Wren stood in Earth's Grand Diplomatic Hall, watching as the Council delegation was formally received. The room was a masterpiece of human architecture, with soaring ceilings and walls of genuine stone, a rarity in an age of synthetic materials. Earth's leaders had deliberately chosen this ancient building to host the aliens, a subtle reminder of humanity's long cultural history. Director Sophia Hayashi appeared at his side, elegant in her formal uniform despite having come directly from the Information Defense Headquarters. "Is it done?" Wren asked quietly. Sophia nodded. "The operation was completed 30 minutes ago. The Malkoth conglomerate now exists only in our secure archives. Every trace of them has been removed from all connected systems across the galaxy. And the survivors? Relocated to Containment Zone Alpha on Titan, their memory patterns have been altered. They'll be studied, then reintegrated into their home systems with no recollection of their former identity." Wren nodded, satisfied. "The Council knows it was us." "Of course they do," Sophia replied with a small smile. "That's the point. They need to understand that our capability isn't limited to a single operation. We can do this repeatedly if necessary." Across the room, Ambassador Vega was introducing the alien delegation to Earth's president. The aliens moved with obvious caution, their body language even across species radiating tension. "They're proposing a treaty," Wren said. "Non-aggression, mutual defense, and information preservation protocols." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "They want us to promise not to erase any more species from history." "Essentially, yes. Will we sign it?" Wren watched as a 7-limbed alien delegate nervously accepted a glass of water, its appendages trembling slightly. "We'll sign," he said. "But with conditions. Any species that targets humans, directly or indirectly, is not protected by the treaty." Sophia nodded, understanding the implications. "A loophole." "Not a loophole," Wren corrected. "A warning." Later that evening, as the diplomatic reception continued in the Grand Hall, Wren and Sophia stood on a balcony overlooking the gardens, speaking in hushed tones. "The question no one is asking," Sophia said, "is why we didn't simply destroy the Varaxians and the Malkoth conventionally. We have the firepower. Why resort to information erasure?" Wren looked up at the night sky, where stars twinkled alongside the lights of orbiting stations and ships. "Conventional destruction creates martyrs, fuels vengeance. It leaves records that can inspire future conflict." He paused. "But how do you seek revenge for something you don't remember? How do you rally around a cause that has no historical context?" "You can't," Sophia said. "That's the point, precisely. The most perfect form of victory isn't destroying your enemy," Wren said quietly. "It's making it so they never existed in the first place." In the diplomatic hall, one of the alien delegates was asking Ambassador Vega about Earth's historical conflicts, trying to understand how humans thought about war and peace. "We've had many wars throughout our history," Vega was explaining, "but we learned something important from them. That true power lies not just in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to control the narrative." "What do you mean?" asked the delegate, a being with features that resembled a cross between an insect and a feline. "History," Vega said, taking a sip of his drink, "is written by the victors. In the past, that meant recording events from your perspective. Now for humanity, it means deciding whether events should be recorded at all." The delegate's compound eyes blinked rapidly, and what humans had learned was a sign of distress. "That's a frightening philosophy, Ambassador," Vega smiled. "Only for those who give us reason to implement it." Outside on the balcony, Wren received a message on his secure device. He read it, then showed it to Sophia. "The Council is calling an emergency session," he said. "They want to officially recognize Earth as a major. So the last species that angered humanity, now erased from galactic history, The central archives of the Galactic Council stretched for miles beneath the surface of Nexus Prime, the artificial planet that served as the Council's headquarters. Dr. Elena Russo moved carefully through the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As Earth's chief archivist, she had been granted unprecedented access to these sacred halls, a privilege no non-council species had ever been given before. The alien guard accompanying her, a towering being with crystalline skin that refracted light in hypnotic patterns, stopped before a massive door inscribed with symbols from 100 different languages. The restricted historical repository, the guard announced, its voice a strange harmonic that made Elena's teeth vibrate. No weapons, communication devices, or unauthorized technology permitted beyond this point. Elena nodded, surrendering her personal devices to a scanning field that materialized in the air. I understand. I'm here only to observe and learn. The guard's crystalline features rearranged themselves into what might have been skepticism. You are the first human to enter this chamber. The Council's decision was controversial. I appreciate the exception made for Earth, Elena replied diplomatically. The massive door slid open with a sound like distant thunder, revealing a vast chamber with walls lined with what appeared to be liquid light flowing through transparent conduits. In the center of the room stood a cluster of alien beings, each from a different species, gathered around a floating holographic display. The human archivist has arrived, announced the guard. All eyes turned to Elena. Some were multifaceted like insects. Others glowed with internal light, and a few didn't resemble eyes at all. The tension in the room was palpable. Welcome to the heart of galactic memory, said a being composed primarily of swirling gas contained within a transparent exoskeleton. This was Grand Archivist Zulvex, the keeper of the Council's most precious historical records. We have much to discuss. Elena approached the central platform, where the holographic display showed what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with certain sectors highlighted in pulsing red. These are the affected zones, Zulvex explained, gesturing with a vaporous appendage. Regions where historical records have been compromised. Elena studied the display carefully. The red zones corresponded precisely to the systems formerly controlled by the Varaxians and the Malkoth species that had threatened Earth and subsequently been erased from history. Compromised is an interesting choice of words, Elena said. I would say corrected. A ripple of discomfort moved through the assembled archivists. You cannot seriously defend the wholesale manipulation of historical records, said a serpentine being with scales that shifted color with its emotions, currently a deep, angry purple. I'm not here to defend or apologize, Elena replied calmly. I'm here because the Council requested Earth's assistance in understanding what happened and preventing unauthorized alterations to the archives in the future. Unauthorized? Hissed the serpentine archivist. So Earth claims the authority to determine which parts of galactic history are permitted to exist. Elena met the alien's gaze steadily. Earth claims the right to protect itself using whatever means necessary. The species that were removed from history made a choice to target humans. They faced the consequences. Zulvex's gaseous form swirled more rapidly, a sign of agitation. This chamber contains the collective memory of over 3,000 civilizations spanning more than 60 million years. The integrity of these records is sacred to every member species of the Council. Except, apparently, to humans, added another archivist bitterly. Elena walked slowly around the holographic display, examining the affected sectors from all angles. Let me ask you something, she said finally. In the 60 million years of records you've preserved here, how many species have been completely exterminated by others? Uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. 1,412, Zulvex answered eventually, all documented in full detail within these archives, including the perpetrators, their methods, and their justifications, Elena noted. All preserved for future generations to study. Of course, replied the gaseous archivist. History must be preserved, especially its darkest chapters, so that such atrocities are not repeated. Elena nodded thoughtfully. And yet they were repeated, 1,412 times. She looked around at the alien archivists. Humanity chose a different approach. Instead of physical extermination, we removed the aggressors from the narrative entirely. You didn't just alter records, the Serpentine archivist objected. You somehow affected active memory across thousands of systems. Beings who had personal relationships with the Varaxians and Malkoth no longer remember them. That goes far beyond record manipulation. Yes, Elena agreed simply. It does. The admission sent another wave of unease through the chamber. Zulvex floated closer to Elena, its gaseous body pulsing with patterns that indicated deep concern. The technology to affect quantum information? States across such distances should be theoretically impossible for a species at your development level. Many things thought impossible have become possible once humans set their minds to the task, Elena replied. She turned to face the assembled archivists directly. But I'm not here to discuss the specifics of our technology. I'm here to help establish new protocols for the archives. Protocols that will protect historical information while respecting the sovereignty of all species, including Earth's claimed right to erase portions of history? Asked the Serpentine archivist sarcastically. Elena smiled. Including provisions for handling species that commit acts of aggression against council members. The Varaxians and Malkoth chose to attack a newly discovered intelligent species rather than establish peaceful contact. Would any of you argue they didn't deserve consequences? None of the archivists spoke. I thought not, Elena continued. Now I propose we begin by establishing a secure partition within the archives. A protected space where records of all species, including those subject to information adjustment, can be preserved for scholarly study. You would allow the memories of the erased species to be maintained here? Zulvex asked, surprised. Within controlled conditions, yes, Elena replied. Earth has no desire to eradicate knowledge completely. We simply remove these species from the active memory of the galaxy as punishment for their actions. The Council can preserve the record of what happened, so long as that information cannot be used to threaten Earth again. The archivists exchanged glances, or whatever passed for glances among species with such diverse sensory organs. That is, more reasonable than we expected, admitted the Serpentine being, its scales shifting to a more neutral blue. Humanity is not unreasonable, Elena said. We are simply protective of our existence. Consider our position. We emerged into a galaxy where thousands of species have been exterminated throughout history. We developed a method to ensure we would not become number 1,413. 6 hours later, Elena stood before a different council chamber, this one filled with military representatives from 24 of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Unlike the archivists, these beings wore the equivalent of uniforms and insignia, marking them as commanders and strategists of their respective forces. The human defensive capability represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of information warfare, she explained, gesturing to a display showing the theoretical principles behind Earth's quantum erasure technology. But it need not be viewed as only a threat. Earth is prepared to share aspects of this technology for joint defense against extragalactic incursions. Why would you share such a powerful advantage? Asked Fleet Commander Oryx, a heavily armored being whose species had evolved in environments with crushing gravity. Because isolation is not security, Elena replied. Earth recognizes that our future is bound to the galactic community. We wish to be seen as partners, not merely as a threat to be contained. Partners? Rumbled another commander. Your species has existed on the galactic stage for less than a cycle, yet you've already demonstrated the ability to rewrite reality itself. Many view humanity as an existential danger to all established order. Elena nodded, understanding their fear, which is precisely why we're offering limited technology sharing and joint defense protocols. Earth has no territorial ambitions beyond our immediate stellar neighborhood. We seek security, not dominance. Yet you dominate through fear, observed Oryx. We protect through capability, Elena corrected. The species we removed from history had one thing in common. They viewed humans as easy targets, resources to be harvested. They were wrong. Now the galaxy understands that humanity will not be victimized or subjugated. And if the Council refuses your partnership, asked a commander from the back of the chamber. Elena's expression remained pleasant, but her voice took on an edge. That would be unfortunate, but Earth would respect the Council's decision. We would simply continue to develop our defensive capabilities independently. The implied threat hung in the air. The Council has existed for millions of years. said Oryx slowly. In that time, many species have risen quickly, demonstrated alarming technologies, and threatened to upset the balance of power. The last species that angered humanity, now erased from galactic history. Observation deck of the diplomatic vessel. Harmony provided a spectacular view of the massive space station that served as the headquarters for the newly formed Galactic Security Council. The station hung against the backdrop of a vibrant nebula, its crystalline spires and rotating rings glittering in the light of distant stars. Defense Director James Monroe stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as ships from a dozen different species maneuvered carefully around the station. "Quite the gathering," remarked a voice behind him. James turned to see Ambassador Vega approaching, looking tired but satisfied after 3 days of intense negotiations. "Indeed. Never thought I'd see the day when the Zeth Dominion and the Aquarian Collective would send ships to the same meeting, let alone agree to serve on the same council." "Fear is a powerful unifying force," Marcus said, coming to stand beside James at the viewport. "And right now there's nothing the galaxy fears more than another species disappearing from collective memory." 5 years had passed since humanity's introduction to the galactic community, 5 years of careful diplomacy, backed by the implicit threat of Earth's unique weapon. The Galactic Council, once merely a forum for discussion, had been reformed into something far more robust, a true governing body with actual enforcement powers. "The treaty is finalized," Marcus said, handing James a datapad. "All 27 major powers have signed. The Security Council becomes official at today's ceremony." James scanned the document quickly, nodding with satisfaction. "And Earth's position?" "One of 5 permanent members with veto power over any military action," Marcus replied. "Exactly as we wanted. And the concessions?" Marcus sighed. "We've agreed to contain our quantum erasure technology to defensive applications only. No preemptive strikes. Any future use must be approved by at least 3 of the 5 permanent council members." "A restriction we can live with," James said, returning the pad, "given that no one would dare vote against us if we claimed defensive necessity." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's communication system. "Ambassador Vega, Director Monroe, your presence is requested in Conference Room 1. Priority message from Earth Command." The 2 men exchanged glances before making their way through the sleek corridors of the Harmony. The conference room was already secured when they arrived, with quantum encryption fields active and all communication systems isolated. The holographic display in the center of the table activated, showing the stern face of Admiral Takeda. "Gentlemen, we have a situation." "What's happened, Admiral?" James asked, immediately alert. "Our deep space monitoring network has detected unusual energy signatures originating from beyond the galactic rim," Takeda explained, his image flickering slightly despite the powerful communication array. "The pattern matches nothing in our database or in the council records we've accessed." "Extragalactic?" Marcus asked, his brow furrowing with concern. "It appears so," Takeda confirmed. "Multiple signatures approaching at sub-light speed. Current trajectory would bring them to the outer rim in approximately 8 standard months." James leaned forward. "First contact with a completely unknown civilization, possibly from another galaxy entirely. This changes everything." "It may be worse than that," Takeda said grimly. "We've intercepted communications between council species. It seems several of their long-range sensors have detected these signatures as well, but they're deliberately concealing the information." "Why would they do that?" Marcus wondered. Takeda's expression darkened further. "Because according to fragments we've decrypted, this isn't first contact. These signatures match historical records of a species called the Harvesters, a nomadic civilization that apparently visited our galaxy approximately 50,000 years ago." "I've never heard of them," James said. "No one living has," Takeda replied. "They're mentioned only in the most ancient council records preserved in the Central Archives. According to these accounts, the Harvesters swept through dozens of star systems, stripping them of resources and leaving dead worlds in their wake. They were finally driven back beyond the rim by a coalition of the most powerful species of that era, at tremendous cost. And now they're returning," Marcus said quietly. "So it would seem," Takeda confirmed. "The question is, why are council leaders hiding this information? We're about to sign a mutual defense treaty that would obligate all members to share exactly this kind of threat intelligence." James and Marcus exchanged knowing looks. They're afraid, James said. Not just of these harvesters, but of how Earth might respond to the threat. Our quantum erasure technology, Marcus added. It could be the most effective weapon against an invasion force. And they fear we might use the crisis to expand our influence, James concluded. Takeda nodded. Precisely. Which puts us in a difficult position. Do we reveal that we know about the approaching threat, or play along with their deception for now? James considered for a moment. We need more information before making any decisions. I suggest we proceed with the treaty signing as planned, while quietly ramping up our defenses and intelligence gathering. I agree, Marcus said. We should also secure access to those ancient records about the previous harvester incursion. If we're facing a galaxy-wide threat, we need to know everything about our enemy. There's one more complication, Takeda added. We've detected unusual activity in the systems where we previously employed the quantum erasure weapon. The empty spaces where the Voraxians and others once existed are showing signs of information reconstruction. That's impossible, James said sharply. The erasure is supposed to be permanent. Theoretically, yes, Takeda agreed. But we're seeing evidence that suggests otherwise. It's as if the fabric of reality itself is attempting to heal the wounds we created. Information patterns are spontaneously reforming, though still fragmentary and inconsistent. Marcus paled slightly. If the erased species begin to return to collective memory, then our primary deterrent becomes significantly less effective, James finished. Timing couldn't be worse. The ceremony to officially establish the Galactic Security Council was held in the station's vast central chamber, a magnificent space with walls of transparent material that offered a panoramic view of the surrounding nebula. Representatives from over 300 species filled the chamber, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic life. James and Marcus stood on the raised platform alongside the representatives of the other 4 permanent council members. The crystalline Thelians, the gaseous Zorax Collective, the insectoid Vespid Hives, and the ancient Aquarian Collective. Together, these 5 powers would now guide the military and security policies of the entire galaxy. High Arbiter Zelthor, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical shell, hovered before them. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history. Their translated voice boomed throughout the chamber. For too long, our civilization has been plagued by conflict and uncertainty. The Reformed Council will ensure peace through unified strength and mutual defense. As the Arbiter spoke, James observed the other permanent members carefully. The Thelian representative's crystalline surface was vibrating at an unusual frequency, a sign of nervousness or deception, according to Earth's xenobiological briefings. The Vespid representative's antennae were twitching in a pattern that suggested agitated communication with others of its kind. They know, James thought. They all know about the approaching threat, and they're deliberately keeping Earth in the dark. The treaty signing proceeded with all the expected ceremony and diplomatic flourishes. James signed on behalf of Earth, the pen feeling oddly primitive among beings who communicated thoughts directly through energy patterns or chemical exchanges. Yet the physical act of signing held symbolic power that all present understood. With these agreements we forge a new path, declared the Arbiter, as the final signatures were applied. One of cooperation and mutual security for all galactic citizens, the I. Chamber erupted in sounds of approval. Everything, from humanoid applause to the harmonic vibrations of crystalline beings to the light pulses of energy-based life forms. As the formal ceremony concluded and the gathering transitioned to diplomatic mingling, James made his way toward the Aquarian representative, a being that appeared to be composed of liquid held in a roughly humanoid shape by invisible force fields. Representative Orlak, James greeted, using the traditional Aquarian gesture of respect. Earth congratulates the collective on its appointment to the Permanent Council. The liquid being's surface rippled in acknowledgement. Director Monroe, the Aquarian Collective likewise recognizes Earth's significant contribution to galactic security. James noted the careful choice of words. I believe our contributions are just beginning, he said casually, especially given the challenges that lie ahead. The Aquarian's liquid form stilled momentarily, a reaction equivalent to sudden tension in a humanoid. What challenges do you foresee, Director? James smiled diplomatically. The same ones approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Representative. The ones your long-range sensors detected 3 standard months ago. The reaction was immediate and unmistakable. The Aquarian's form lost cohesion for a split second before rapidly restructuring itself. I do not know. The last species that angered humanity, now erased from galactic history. The walls of the Emergency Command Center deep beneath Earth's surface displayed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with a pulsing red line slowly advancing from the outer rim toward the more densely populated core regions. General Diana Walsh studied the projection with grim determination, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic light. Around her, 24 of humanity's top military and scientific minds monitored different aspects of the approaching crisis. Time to intercept with the outer defense line? Diana asked. 72 hours, General, replied Colonel Torres from the tactical station. The Harvester fleet has accelerated beyond our previous estimates. They'll reach the Arcturus system first. Current composition? Over 300 vessels detected, Torres reported. Varying sizes, but all heavily armed according to our scans. Energy signatures suggest weapons technology far beyond Council standards. Diana nodded, unsurprised. The Harvesters had been traveling between galaxies for millennia. Their technological evolution would have proceeded unhindered by the political constraints that slowed development within the Galactic Council. And our allies? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Director James Monroe stepped forward, his expression tight with controlled anger. The Council fleet remains at Nexus Prime. Despite our repeated warnings and the now undeniable evidence of the Harvester approach, they've refused to deploy to the Outer Rim. They're sacrificing the Rim worlds, Diana concluded, using them as a buffer to buy time. Worse than that, James said. We've intercepted communication suggesting they plan to use the initial Harvester attacks to assess the invaders' capabilities before committing their own forces. Those Rim worlds have billions of inhabitants, Diana said, disgust evident in her voice. Most of whom belong to non-Council species or those with limited political influence, James pointed out. The Council leadership appears willing to accept their losses. Diana turned to face the gathered command staff. Then Earth will stand alone at Arcturus. Initiate Phase 1 of Operation Memory Hole. The command center burst into activity as orders were relayed to Earth's defense fleet. Over the past 5 years, humanity had been quietly building its military capabilities, constructing ships and weapons that incorporated both Earth technology and adapted elements from civilizations they had encountered. The Council knew about some of these preparations, but not their true extent. General, called Dr. Sophia Hayashi from the research station, Information Defense reports that the quantum reconstruction phenomenon in the Varaxian sectors has accelerated. We're now detecting coherent data patterns reforming throughout those systems. Diana exchanged concerned looks with James. The mysterious healing of the quantum erasure effect had been progressing for months, but this sudden acceleration was alarming. Theories? Diana asked. Sophia's expression was troubled. We believe it may be connected to the Harvester approach. Their ships emit a unique subspace radiation that appears to interact with quantum information states, essentially reinforcing patterns that should have been permanently erased. Could they be doing this deliberately? James asked. As a weapon against us? Unknown, Sophia admitted. But the effect is unmistakable. If this continues, the species we erased could begin to reappear in the collective memory of the galaxy. Diana absorbed this troubling information. How long until full reconstruction? At current rates, approximately 14 days. Then we have 14 days to stop the Harvesters, Diana said firmly, before our primary strategic advantage is neutralized. 72 hours later, Earth's defense fleet took up positions around the Arcturus system. 47 ships representing the best of human military technology formed a barrier between the approaching Harvester fleet and the inhabited worlds beyond. Aboard the flagship Defiance, Diana stood on the bridge watching as the enemy vessels appeared on long-range sensors. They were unlike any ships humanity had encountered. Massive, organic-looking structures with twisted spires and pulsing energy. Conduits exposed on their hulls. They're not attempting to conceal their approach, noted Captain Rafael Diaz, the Defiance's commanding officer. No evasive maneuvers, no attempt at stealth. They don't feel the need, Diana replied. According to the ancient records, they've never been defeated in direct combat. Only driven off after enormous losses. Well, they've never faced humans before, Raphael said with grim determination. The communication officer called out, "General, we're receiving a transmission from the lead harvester vessel. It's directed specifically at Earth Command." Diana's eyebrows rose in surprise. "They know who we are?" "It appears so." "Put it through." The main view screen flickered and an image appeared that caused several bridge officers to recoil instinctively. The being displayed could only loosely be described as humanoid. It had multiple limbs arranged asymmetrically around a central mass, with sensory organs that seemed to shift position constantly. Its skin, if it could be called that, was a mosaic of metallic plates and transparent sections revealing pulsing internal fluids. "Representatives of Earth," the being spoke, its voice translated by the ship's computer into a flat, emotionless tone. "I am Nexus of Consumption, primary gatherer for this collection fleet. Your defensive posture is noted and dismissed. Stand aside or be harvested along with the resources of this system." Diana stepped forward. "I am General Diana Walsh, representing the United Forces of Earth and Humanity. The Arcturus system is under our protection. Your fleet will withdraw immediately or face consequences." The alien being's sensory organs pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Your species was not present during our last visit to this galaxy. You are unknown to us, yet you position yourselves as defenders. Curious." "We know what happened during your last visit," Diana replied coldly. "The worlds you stripped of life, the civilizations you destroyed. It won't happen again. It is the natural order," the being stated. "The strong consume the resources of the weak. We have followed this pattern across 17 galaxies for millions of cycles. You cannot stop what we are. Watch us," Diana said simply and cut the transmission. She turned to her communications officer. "Send the signal to deploy the quantum destabilizers." Throughout the Earth fleet, specialized devices activated, emitting precisely calibrated energy fields that expanded to encompass a sphere of space directly in the harvester's path. These devices, the latest application of Earth's quantum information technology, were designed not to erase memory, but to disrupt the fundamental information patterns that defined physical reality itself within a limited area. On the main view screen, the crew watched as the lead harvester ships entered the affected zone. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then almost imperceptibly, the ships began to lose coherence. Their structures became blurred as if viewed through rippling water. Materials that should have been solid began to flow and intermix. Energy systems destabilized, releasing wild bursts of radiation. "It's working," Sophia reported from the science station, her voice tense with concentration. "The quantum destabilization field is breaking down the information patterns that define their physical structure." The effect spread through the front line of the harvester fleet, causing ship after ship to dissolve into clouds of disorganized matter. No explosions, no dramatic destruction, just the quiet unmaking of objects as the information that defined them was scrambled beyond recognition. Then, without warning, the effect stopped. The remaining harvester ships halted just outside the affected zone, seemingly analyzing what had happened to their vanguard. "They're adapting," Sophia warned. "I'm detecting energy patterns from their ships that are stabilizing the quantum field." Diana had expected this. "Deploy Phase 2. From the Earth ships, smaller vessels launched, unmanned drones carrying specialized payloads. They accelerated toward the harvester fleet at tremendous speed, too fast to be intercepted effectively. As they reached their targets, they didn't explode or fire weapons in the conventional sense. Instead, they attached themselves to the harvester ships and began broadcasting directly into their communication and control systems. "Information warfare packages deployed," reported the tactical officer. "Viral upload commencing." These viruses were unlike anything used in traditional computer systems. They were designed to attack the very concept of the harvesters in the information space, erasing not just data, but the fundamental patterns that define the harvesters as a species. On the view screen, the effect was gradual but unmistakable. The harvester ships began to drift, their movements becoming uncoordinated. Energy signatures fluctuated wildly. "They're losing cohesion," Sophia reported. "The quantum erasure effect is spreading through their fleet, but..." She frowned at her readings. "Something's wrong. The effect is being reflected back toward our ships. Diana felt a chill run down her spine. Explain. The harvesters, their biology, their technology, it's all based on information manipulation, similar to our own quantum techniques but far more advanced, Sophia explained rapidly. They're not just resisting the erasure, they're turning it back on us, and not just on our ships. The effect is propagating through subspace toward Earth itself. Can we stop it? Diana demanded. Sophia's expression was grim. Not conventi.